All right. Hey, good morning, guys. Thank you for joining us online. I was told I need to introduce myself, so I'm Britt McDowell. I'm the minister here at Radcliff Christian, and we thank you for joining us this morning. So everybody that's here in the building, if you could grab your device and share this and help us get the message out. And I'm going to send it to a couple folks, and then we'll go ahead and get into things. This has been a challenging week, to say the least, for everything that we've had going on. And it just seems like we get more and more challenges. You know, if you have challenges and you have adversity and you get stronger and you get better, it should get easier. But it seems like they just keep coming, right? It's like Donkey Kong hopping around and just, you know, you bounce around and you just go and you go, and what do? You just keep going. That's all you can do. But that's the blessing that we have, and that's what we get to do. So I titled this sermon this morning, "The World Doesn't Need Jesus." In a week of tragedy and hyper fixation and crazy journalism and everything else, I've heard people say over and over again, believers, the world just needs Jesus. And I'm going to argue that's not the case. Because that's said in a way that defers ownership, that defers responsibility. It's not on me. I have mine. I have Jesus. It's on them. So I'm going to tell you, the world doesn't need Jesus. The world needs Jesus' followers to be more like Him, so that we are the light and the salt and the hands and the feet that serves and ministers all, not just our own, not just those that look like us or that believe like us or that vote like us or that love like us or that sin like us. You know, you shouldn't judge somebody because they sin differently than you. I woke up this morning. Let me rephrase this. I went to bed last night. Rewind that. I went to bed Friday night, and I knew 100% what I was going to preach on this morning. And then Saturday happened, and I went to bed Saturday night at about 75% that I knew what I was going to preach on this morning. And then I woke up this morning 100% sure that what I had planned wasn't what I was going to do. My Sunday morning routine is I wake up between 6 and 6:30. I get up, I go downstairs. I have a big bottle of water with some different things mixed in with it. I sit down, I get on ESPN.com. Not that kind of stuff, Rachel. It's too early in the morning for that. If y'all saw what I drank in the morning, you'd think it's pond water, but that's a whole other story. I get up, I go to ESPN.com. I see who won and who lost yesterday that I didn't get to keep track of, so that I know what I'm going to talk about with Mike today after church. We got a lot to talk about Sunday night's game last week. That was, whew. He's a Ravens fan, and I have Derrick Henry on my fantasy league, so I'm a Ravens fan by default too. But I got up this morning, and when I went to bed last night, one of the last things that I consumed media-wise was a Facebook post from somebody that you probably wouldn't think I'd be the kind of friend with, because they're a little bit out there. They're a different faith, they're a different lifestyle, they're a different everything. And I sat and I consumed that post, and my heart began to process and to think about what I had intended to say versus what I needed to say. So we had a change. And so my question today that we're going to start with is, what are your personal beliefs? Now, personal beliefs are the foundation of who we are. What we think about how the family should function and be run. Who family is. Is it blood or choice? And I kind of think that there are 3 levels of belief. The first level is the kind of belief that you would argue over. That if somebody had a different belief than you, then Rita and I could have a firm conversation, and we might get heated and we might get a little loud, but I'm not going to think less of Rita, but we're going to argue, and I'm going to make my case and she's going to make her case. And at the end of the day, we're both going to be exactly the same as we were. Then there's another level of belief, and that level of belief is, what would you fight for? What would you come to violence for? Family, protection of the family, business, property, wealth, power, control. All of those things are beliefs that people have, or beliefs about those things that some people, or a lot of people, would fight for. Or what would you stand up for, I guess, is the argument. I think of the old Randy Travis song, you got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. And that's a little bit of self-righteous indignation that goes there about the strength and the passion of our beliefs dictate our activity. So if you would fight for a belief, is that going to be verbal, where you're going to be really ugly? Is that going to be physical, where you're going to resort to violence? Do you have a personal belief that you would kill for? I saw a thing on Facebook that was really funny, and it asked the question, would you kill somebody if they stole your dog to save your dog? I've got 2 dogs, and both of them are pretty special to me. And I think knee-jerk reaction is, oh yeah, I'd kill to save my dogs. And then I just said that a human life is not as important to me as an animal. Those are beliefs. Our beliefs make up our core structure of who we are. I went to a wedding yesterday, and I walked into a church, and they had their 10 core beliefs on the church. And I read the first one, and I said, I would never come here. Because their first core belief was not that our church exists today because of the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. It was about Scripture. They had forgotten that the Bible exists because of the church, not that the church exists because of the Bible. And then as I went down the line, I had disagreement. It would be somewhere that I wouldn't go. And I'm thankful they had it on the side of the door, because how many people show up somewhere and they get there and conflict and strife. So we know kind of the 3 levels of belief. And I'm going to ask the question, how did you develop your beliefs? Your core values? Did you learn them from your parents? Did you learn them from mentors, teachers, coaches, spiritual advisors, people that you had relationships with? A society socializes. I use the term socialize because this is a sociology term. A society uses organizations and entities to teach the norms of a society. That's what socialization means, is to be taught the norms of a society. And there's 3 main institutions for that. Number 1 is the home. Number 2 is the church. And number 3 is the school. That's how it used to be back when I was in college. But it's still the same social structure. In North America, rural southern United States, you could say it's the family, the church, and school. We see a breakdown in our norms of society because there are shifts of importance and function that are not done there. That has changed. Because the family's not how it used to be. People's attendance at church is not how it used to be. And so we have people that are coming into society that have learned to be who they are somewhere. And that's the product we get, because it's a lack of influence. It's a lack of mentoring, for lack of better terms. They haven't been taught. And you can't judge a fish for its inability to climb a tree, just like you can't judge a kid or an adult for doing something they didn't know they weren't supposed to, or believe in a way that is not correct, or that is not generally accepted as safe by society. So we had a massive violation of societal norms this week that was highly publicized. We had a very prominent social media influencer, depending on what side of the internet you're on, he could have been a hero or he could have been a heel. And it's been very polarizing. And so I want to ask a question. Any of y'all had a fight with anybody this week over online or in person or over values and beliefs? I had a couple. That fight take place in person, online, or on the phone. And I'm going to tell you, if it robs you of your peace, you probably should just get rid of it. And so I found myself numerous times this week just walking away from my computer or walking away from my phone. It was not good on productivity. If you did have a fight with somebody this week, if it wasn't over that, what was it over? And if you did have a disagreement, an argument, a fight, or a verbal altercation with somebody this week, how many of you can raise your hand and confidently say that you were right and they were wrong? Maybe it's an oversimplification, but there's always two sides. It's always that way. And sometimes I think our society's problem is that we have people that have become masterful at telling people it's either one or the other, and that it's one or two, A or B, yes or no, and that's all that's there. Now, as a little boy to a young man to a middle-aged man, if I were to write a book summarizing my life, the subtitle would be The Life of Britt McDowell, Living in the Loophole. Then y'all have those kids that it didn't matter what you say, they always found the loophole. They live in a world not of black and white, but of gray. That's me. The rules tell me what I can't do. They don't tell me what I can do. So if the rule says don't run, that doesn't mean I can't shuffle, I can't jog backwards, I can't skip, I can't hop, I can't bound. I just can't run. That's how I've always lived my life. Side note, if you see me running anywhere, you better follow because something bad's happened, because I don't run. I'm old enough now, I just fight. But when we think about what formed our personal beliefs and we try to get outside of this simple one side versus the other, we think about, it brings a lot to think about. What brought your belief? Was it experience? Did you experience something like grabbing a hot pan is bad? You burn your hand, so you have the belief that hot pans are bad. Was it information? There was a sign over the stove that says, do not touch, hot, will hurt. Or did you hear somebody talking about touching a hot pan? And you learn from somebody else's experience? Was it just the information? On that sign, was that fact or was that opinion? Because hot's relative, right? I grab stuff out of the oven all the time. Not necessarily, I may have a towel, or I may have an oven mitt, or I may just barehand it. Somebody else does, they're going to burn themselves, but it's not hot to me. So when you start looking at what's built these beliefs that people hold so strong, you got to ask yourself, well, is it experience? Is it information? Is it other people's experience? Now that's a dramatic oversimplification. But there's a lot of truth in that simplification. Do you know anybody that has super strong beliefs but no personal experience? They believe that X, Y, or Z is bad, but they've never personally encountered X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's a group of people. Maybe it's an organization. Maybe it's something, whatever a stereotype might fall into that. If they have no personal experience, does that make the belief any less valid? Does it make the belief less important? I don't know. Just ask that question. We ask the question in an argument or in beliefs, who is right and who is wrong? Number one, beware of the man or the woman that says they are right because God is on their side. Been my personal experience, God doesn't play favorites and he doesn't take sides. There are political issues in our country today that people want to stand up and wave values, family values, or they quote scripture to weaponize and to bash people. God's no more on their side than he is on the other side. Because generally when someone's able to say that God is on their side, what they have done is they're saying that their God, the deity in their mind that they have created that is in their image, that has the same faults, the same flaws, and the same negative sentiment as they do. They've created this little deity that they pull out of their pocket that justifies their position. In every story, every argument, every battle, every war, every whatever, conflict, everyone thinks they are the good guy. History's written by the winners. Had Stalin not have been aligned with the winners, would he be perceived historically different than he is by the majority of people today? When you look at the fact that he killed 20 million people of his own people, and the atrocities and the craziness and the things that he did. He's the true villain of World War II, or a true villain of World War II, when you look at it from an outside perspective. But because he was sided with the winners, that gets swept under the rug. A lot of times stuff like that happens. But in every story, every argument, every disagreement, both sides think that they're the hero. They think that they're right. Whether it be you're cheering for the Cats or the Cards, the Imperials or the Rebels, North versus South, ketchup versus mustard on a hot dog. Rita, I am team both plus relish. But I know some people that will smack a hot dog out of your hand if you put ketchup on it. It's supposed to be mustard. I mean, they're that strong about it. When God is used to settle an agreement, beware. Because it doesn't work that way. That's a dramatic oversimplification. I guess Kevin's not here this morning, not to call him out, but Kevin sends me some really neat stuff on the internet. He sent me this picture, and it was a circle with a line through it. I should have sent it to Matt to put it up there, and it was an emblem that looked like, I had to Google it to find out what it was. But it was basically a circle with a line through it, and it was a shadow cut out of Don Quixote. And it was in front of a windmill in Holland. So I had to look this up to figure out what it was, and it was actually... There was a popular phrase, I didn't know this till this morning, no tilting at windmills. And I'm like, what does no tilting at windmills mean? And it meant that basically a lot of the things that we feel oppressed by, or that we feel offended by, or that we feel like we're ready to fight over, are self-imposed. They're figments of our imagination. They're not true. And that's what it means when Don Quixote was tilting at windmills. He's being offended by the windmill over something that never really happened. So, I know y'all are like, Britton, you're going all over the place. Get to the meat of the matter. I don't want to run out of time. So we look at our polarized world. We look at the conflict, whether it is real or self-imposed. The anger, the anxiety, the frustration that comes from people that are different than us, or people that are the same as us but not quite like us. And the internet has been abounding with it all week. And it just keeps going more and more and more. What is our solution? What does that mean for us? And I want to quote one of the wisest men that I ever had the privilege of knowing. And that was my daddy. And he says that the number one cause of a misunderstanding is a lack of understanding. When we are in those battles, those conflicts, those blood pressure rising events, I want to challenge you to take a step back and understand how the person you're talking to got to where they are. Because when you understand where they are, you then have the ability to meet them where they're at. You should ask yourself questions like, what were they told? What did they see? What is their personal experience? What is the information they've consumed? Was it factual? Was it opinion? That's one of the things that's a side note here. We have a lot of people in our world today that they make their decisions based on opinion that has been presented as fact that is not fact. I heard the term this week, personal truth. Personal truth does not exist. That is just simply an opinion dressed up with lipstick. It's still a pig. There are truths. We are on earth. We were created by someone or something. Someone could argue that that's an opinion. But there are truths, and then there are opinions that dance around as truths. And a lot of people lack the critical thinking skills to know the difference. And we need to take that into consideration when we are interacting with people, because ultimately, everything that we're going to talk about from this point forward goes to one key concept. And that is, when we're dealing with people, are we going to keep our temper? Are we going to keep our wits? Are we going to keep those things so that they can see Jesus in us? That's the question. That's what we're working towards. Is our beliefs and our actions going to conceal Christ and make us like all those that are out there that say one thing but do another, or are they going to show Christ to someone that maybe doesn't know it, or to someone who thinks they know it but really don't? There's a lot of those out there too. Carla has that little bleed over from what I had prepared earlier. I read a post last night on Facebook. It was well written. It was 47 paragraphs. I would have read it to you, but I didn't want to take 15 minutes to do it because I had to reread some things. I had to look some words up. But it basically said that there were two people that were looking at the same event. And one had been given one side of information, and the other had been given the other side of information, and they were both convinced they were firmly right. And neither person could figure out how the other person could say or agree with that, because everything they had seen, consumed, and read was the opposite, was the contradiction of that. And that's kind of how the internet works. That's how social media works. It's, you hear the term echo chamber and things like that. They keep feeding you what you like so that you keep engaged because they're selling you stuff. And we lose balance. And the further we go, one way or the other, the more skewed and slanted we get and the faster downhill we go without balance. When someone in this argument starts, you got to look at what they're consuming. You got to see. But in this post, the lady goes through and basically explains how they sat there and they pulled out their phones and they started showing each other what they were seeing about this person, and it was exactly the opposite. One viewed the person as a hero, the other viewed the person as a heel or the villain. So when we're dealing with people that have very strong beliefs, we have to know that you're not going to beat them into submission. When was the last time somebody stood up in front of you, regardless of the case that you lay out before them, and they say, you know what, you're right, I'm wrong? It takes a special person to be able to do that, and most of us aren't that special. In fact, the stronger the core belief, the more emotion that's tied to it, the doubling down effect occurs. Because We have an intrinsic thing that says we can't admit that we've been lied to, or that we fell for it, or that it was a hoax, or that it was a scam, or that it was whatever, that we've been manipulated, that we've been twisted. We can't handle that. As emotional beings, we are not complex enough to be able to handle that. Very few are. They're not going to say, I was wrong, you were right, I'm dumb, you were smart. Everything I know, my reality is wrong, my identity is wrong, it's inaccurate, it's false. It's not going to happen. And I look at it like this, that if it does, by some crazy miracle does happen, it falls under the rule of never wake up a sleepwalker. Because if they're sleepwalking, and they're not open to new information, and you do whatever you can, and you find some success, you're going to become the new enemy. They're never going to see Jesus through you. They're never going to understand the love, the reconciliation that it takes to serve and love and lead. So what do? We love them, we value them, and we don't have to agree. We have to agree to disagree, because I hate that, because I just hate that. And I'm not saying agree to disagree. I'm saying have empathy, have compassion, and understand where they are, how they got there, so that you can find a way to meet them where they're at. I saw a Facebook post this week about a pastor's wife that said that they're ready to take Christ's ministry to campuses. And they're going to go and win souls. And they're going to preach, and they're going to do this. And they're basically going to roll out a glorified guilt show, guilt people and scare people into following Jesus. Is that true salvation? Weaponized scripture may get a man-made, pleasing man view result, but it's not a heavenly result. So as we value them, as we love them where they are, so that we can have the relationships, that we can influence them, and that we can be everything they think that we're not supposed to be, that we're the exact opposite of everything they've been told about us. I want to go to Matthew chapter 5, verse 3, verse through 11. This is the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. This is the introduction. Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on the mountainside and he sat down. His disciples came to him and he began to teach them. And he said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God." I didn't know what this meant until about a year and a half ago. But that means low ego. That means that you are able to put others over self instead of self over others. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. This means blessed are the empathic, the people that have empathy, because they understand loss, death. They understand the emotional turmoil and struggle that other people are going through. And that somewhere along the line they have lost themselves. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. This is the kind and the service-oriented. If we're kind and we serve, the earth is ours. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. This is justice in those that seek it. That all, the marginalized, the fringe, all those that are on the outside that have been mistreated, are mistreated, that group, that we seek justice for them. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. We have to see them as they are and understand why. And understand that they're not a nail to be beaten into the wood with a hammer. They're to be loved, embraced. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. That means those that are showing the love of Christ. That's the ultimate purity. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. This is the settlers. Keep the peace. Understand that we're talking about a long game of eternity, not a here and now, not today, tomorrow, or next week. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Rejoice and be glad in the struggle, because we're playing a game that's based on eternity, not next year or the year after. And if you want to add a little bit more to that fire, you can go over to Matthew chapter 5, verse 43, because some of us have mortal enemies. You have that person that does it to you. And it says, "For you have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy." That's the eye for the eye thing. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. For you may be children of your fathers in heaven. Those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? It's easy to love who loves you, right? Are you not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Be the love that God has for Christ. So as I wrap up today, a little over, I apologize. I want to say that the world doesn't need Jesus. The world needs his followers, the Christians, to be more like him, so that we are the hands, the feet, the arms, the heart, and the love that he called us to embody. I want to thank those who have joined us this morning. If you want to reach out to the Facebook page, we'd love to have you come join us, see us in person, and join us with all that we have here.